Well, hi again, everybody. You might be wondering how in the world I do transfers here in hardcore mode of Football Manager. Now, it's a little bit tricky, right? As you can see right here with this screen that we have in front of us, we got this player, Eugen, who's a 16-year-old winger. We can't see what his stars look like at all. If I click on the player, I don't see any attributes. I don't see anything. I don't see anything at all. We can look through all this whole thing, and yeah, we're not going to see very much, except for what we just saw there, which is that scout report. And the scout report will tell us, oh, he's fairly ambitious, but he doesn't have very good consistency. Now, as I've told you already, there are three main red flags that we want to stay away from. We want to stay away from players who have a problem with injuries of any kind. We want to stay away from any player that has problems with consistency, and we definitely want to stay away from any player that doesn't like big matches. And the fourth sort of red flag that sometimes we can get away with, but we mostly don't, is that personality. Personality is a lot more complicated. It's going to require more videos to get into that. That's the sort of stuff that I'm looking for when I get these scouting reports. Now, you might wonder, what in the world do I do with scouting, right? Well, for the most part, I actually leave scouting up to the scouts, right? So this is that Lelujo approach to doing scouting where I'm like, okay, whatever, you guys kind of do your own thing. If we look at scouting responsibilities, you can see I'm not managing the assignments in the scouting team. I really can't be bothered at this level. I want to let them do their thing, and I want to see kind of what they come up with to an extent. However, I have learned that in Football Manager 2023, there is a problem with the scouting of young players. I can't get my scouts to focus on young players. I want to have players who are 15 or 16. I don't want to have all these recommendations of guys who are over 21. I mean, it's okay. It's nice if they have like an A+ here, but it usually creates problems because they want to play every game. They have an ego. They have an attitude. They come in and then they end up alienating the rest of the squad, and there's all sorts of problems. So the other thing that I do is I give our scouts some scout priorities. And you can see here as you go down this list, look at all of the players that we have that are 16, 17, 16, 17. You'll notice that the majority of them are Chinese. This is what I want my scouts to be focusing on. I want you guys to go around and I want you to look and find all of the Chinese players that we can that are new gens, or some of them that are not new gens that are like 16, 17 years old, 15, 16. And we're going to keep this going. We'll keep it going. We'll keep looking around. Now, there are ways to find them. Usually the easiest way is to go over to players in range. You go do a quick search. So there are some problems. Actually, do a normal search. There are some problems with the way that this works, but you can basically do, range 15 to 16 years old. This is from Zealand's new gen face pack. So you have it set so that is new gen, is not, and all that stuff to show you the guys who are the new gens. In my database, if I just set this as interested in transfer and look at all the guys who are Chinese, I will find like all of the Chinese players who are potentially interested in playing for this team. And then I can just go through a bunch of them and be like, oh, okay, I want to have my scouts look at all these guys. So I right click on them and I'm like, okay, report fully scout player. And then they wind up on that list, and then we'll find out eventually how they are. These two, I probably didn't want to do that because we already have scouting reports on them, and look, they're no good. Anyway, so you go through the whole thing. You look through a bunch of these players. Oh, and who's this guy? Anyway, maybe we want to get this guy, right? Oh, no, we don't. Look, he's got that inconsistency, so that's a problem. So then we just sort of forget about him, right? You look here, you get this in your inbox, and what happens is we find out about this guy we were just looking at, Huang Wei. Should be adding greater consistency to his game. I don't want to deal with it, so I say no, I don't want him. Here comes Eugen now. All I'm looking at, I don't care about this. All I care about here is what is his personality, and what does this say, and what are the other cons on here. Should be looking for greater consistency to his game. Great. He can go do that somewhere else and be lousy for some other team. I don't care. I can't be bothered with this. I don't have time for it, right? If you look here at my transfer history, you look at our most recent transfers, and man, this is going to be a mess. You'll see that we have, okay, so that's a transfer out. When you look at these transfer ins, we have like a bajillion of these guys. We have so many of them. And when we start looking at, here we go, we start looking at guys who just came into this club who are Chinese, what you're going to notice is that they're all young. And not only are they all young, this one's 16 years old, but you will notice that he has, nothing here on consistency, but he doesn't have any of those red flags down here. His personality is balanced, which is not great, but he doesn't have any major red flags. They say might not have the required ability or potential. I mean, yeah, maybe I bought in a 1-star player or a half-star player with like 1-star potential ability or something. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't care. I don't care. This guy's going to go into the under-19s. I don't have any reason to need to flag him. And because he's going straight to the under-19s, I don't have to worry about him too much. I can spend all of my time worrying about players on the first team. And if I'm lucky, maybe one of them will blossom. Maybe they'll end up being a better player than the coaches thought and then the scouts thought, right? Here's another one. Another, 16, Li Qiang. And I'm looking here, and yeah, there's some problems, but we can fix this stuff, right? We can have him play in more than one position. He can get to know the squad a little bit better. We can train him on being effective in the air. We can train him on his physical strength. We can work with all of this stuff that we need to. He's a young prospect way off of first team level. That's great. He's 16. He's not going to play for the first team. He can go chill out with the under-19s and the other under-21s. Now, my goal in the end with these transfers, look at all of this. Look at all of these players who have these yellow flags, right? My goal with the transfers is to get rid of these guys. I'll show you this in future videos, how I use this system so that I can get rid of players I'm never going to play anyway. We want those guys off the team. If you have any sort of yellow flag, even if you're fairly professional or whatever, we need to get you off the team. You don't belong on this team. And we want to eventually have a team that's full of guys that don't have yellow flags, that have some potential that we can work for into the future. The idea here, the theory behind all of this is that eventually we want to have a team full of homegrown Chinese players who are easy to have qualify for tournaments in which we have to have homegrown players. We have to have players from the home country and stuff like that. We want to have them develop at club, and we want to use our club's resources to develop these players. If they're not perfect, if they're not a great player, it's okay. We'll still try to develop them. If in the end they can't make the first team, by the time they're 21, they're still on the under-21, they're not going to make it anywhere. Guess what? We're going to go loan them out, right? Can't loan them out. Okay, well, fine. We'll stick them in the under-21s for a while until they're able to be loaned out. And then the idea is that eventually we'll take the player and we'll go sell him, when he's like 23, 24, something like that, and we sell him for the max amount of benefit. Now, we go back to that transfer screen and we go look at the transfer history again. Remember, we're talking about some of these guys. We're not spending, an arm and a leg on them. I mean, we're not spending that much money on most of these guys. I know that I have like a bajillion, renminbi as this club, but look at this. Sun Yongjie cost 72,000 renminbi, which is like, I don't know, $10,000, right? Liu Min also 67,000 renminbi, right? I mean, if we bet wrong on this guy, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in the end because he costs nothing, right? Some of these guys came in on a free transfer, right? Wanderson, he's a little bit older, but let's look at Ding Yuchi, right? This guy came in on a free transfer. He comes from Karame, so he comes from over in Xinjiang near the, Kashmir and all that stuff. Comes from way out there. Got a good-looking face there, right? I'm looking at his coach report. I don't see any major red flags. It looks like he's an exciting young prospect. He could improve a lot. Who knows? Maybe this guy will eventually be able to play at like a higher level. We will take a gamble on him. We paid no money for him. We got him for free. He was from this academy in the USA. I don't know what he was doing there. I mean, you tell me what you think he was doing there, right? We can have all sorts of crazy stories and stuff like that coming up with this guy. Whatever you want to do, man, we'll do it. But the truth of the matter is that, I mean, honestly, I'll take the risk on this guy, absolutely, and we'll see what happens in the end. I mean, I think it's worth it. I think it's worthwhile to take a risk and to take a chance on a guy like this, especially if he's free. Best case scenario, he ends up being a first team player that we got for free. Worst case scenario, we got to bin the guy off after we loan him out for a couple years. That's all right. We can deal with that. I'll make that trade-off, especially if it's free or if it's cheap. I'd rather get a whole ton of players who are young, who are cheap, than have a huge risk and pay a bunch of money for a guy who's like almost 30 years old who might completely fall apart as a player. I've played it that way. I don't want to play that way anymore. This is the way that we play it. Anyway, so there you go. To wrap this all up, I mean, I don't even care that much about whether he's got an A or an F from the scouts. I can't be bothered with that. What I really care about are those cons here on the coach report. Make sure that there's no major red flags. Balanced is a bad personality. It could be a lot better. I mean, we're not quite at the point yet where we're only going to look at professional players and all that stuff. We'll get to that point after a couple of in-game years. Right now, what I really, really care about right now is making sure that we don't have these major red flags and these major cons, and we'll buy in the young players and we'll put them down in the lower squad and we'll sort of see who rises up to the top. That, in my mind, is the best approach to play Football Manager, no matter what team it is, whether you're managing Manchester City or whether you're managing, Hallam in like the 10th tier of the English system. Whatever it is, this is the way to do it. Anyway, hope you have a good day. Take care. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.